The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Another season of college hoops has arrived, and with that means season 2 of the Ram with Coach Gaitley. That's right, we're back alongside my partner, Jimmy Sullivan. I'm Jackson Heil, and Jimmy, plenty of get to when it comes to Fordham women's hoops, reigning A10 champs, Notre Dame coming into town next week. But first off, excited to be back on the show.
Excited to be back, excited to recap what was a great year last year, obviously A10 champs, and also look forward to what should be an awesome year this year. Tough out-of-conference slate for the Rams. They've got Notre Dame coming up on Tuesday night. Should be a great year, should be a great show, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Plenty to look forward to, as I mentioned, but first we are going to take a look back. Head coach Stephanie Gaitley joins us in just a moment. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Ram with Coach Gaitley. Excited to be joined by the one and only Stephanie Gaitley right now. Coach, thank you for joining us. Welcome back.
Always my pleasure to be with you guys.
Coach, and before we look ahead to next season, let's look back at what was a historic run for you guys last year. Now that you've had time to kind of take it in and take it all in, what is the most important thing that you're going to remember from a year ago?
I think where it probably hit me the most is I got a call like a month ago about our Richmond team going to the Hall of Fame where I coached. And when you're in that moment, you don't know you're creating a moment. So that kind of, when I got off that call, it made me really reflect, and that's really probably when it hit me, you know, that we created a moment in history, and that's when it kind of all came to fruition for me.
We just talked about what you'll most remember from last year's team, but what are you most proud of the team in its progression from the beginning of the season to winning the A10 and going to the NCAA tournament?
I just think there was so much growth from an individual standpoint, whether you take Lauren and Mary and how they grew as captains from their junior to senior year, and then you take the growth of, you know, Bree, and then you take the growth of Kendall, and then Caitlin coming in as a freshman. There was just individual growth, but I think the thing I'm most proud of what that whole season was the chemistry and the lack of unselfishness, or selfishness, I should say. You know, it was a very selfless group that really cared about each other, and on paper, I don't think we were necessarily the most talented team in the conference. We certainly had enough talent to be successful, but I think there was other teams that maybe on paper had more depth and more talent, but our kids didn't let that stand in the way, and that's why we ended up walking away as the winner.
You mentioned the selflessness, and two of your players at the forefront of that, your seniors who graduated, Mary Goulding and Lauren Holden. Can you just talk about the impact that they had on this program in their 4 years here?
Well, it's just interesting when I go back to when they started. You know, let's start with Mary. Mary came in as a sophomore. She was, you know, she came from a junior college, and it was kind of a chance meeting, seeing her after a mass, and she said, Coach, you know, she was frustrated she wasn't playing. What do I need to do? And I'm like, oh my God, it was definitely, you know, God intervening there. But I said, Mary, you know, you got to show up in practice, because really she was inconsistent in practice, and that's where you get your minutes. And she took off that following week, and it was hard to keep her off the court. Then I look back to Lauren, and I just remember saying to my sister who taught Lauren in high school, I'm like, this might be the dumbest point guard I've ever coached. And I'm like, she's a coach's child. To see how much she grew as a player was incredible, because she was always an outstanding person. I loved her as a kid. But to see how she took it upon herself to be a starting point guard as a freshman, and to be able, I was probably harder on her than maybe close to anybody I've coached since I've been at Fordham.
I got to say, Lauren Holden and dumb are two words I would not see going together.
Absolutely, but that's a credit to Lauren.
Yeah.
You know, that she really bought in. And again, you always have to step back and keep in mind that when you're in high school, you're obviously you have a whole different set of rules you're dealing with. She was the second leading scorer in the state of New Jersey, so she was all about like shooting, but not because she was selfish, because that was her role. So I needed to kind of teach her a new role, and it took her some time to embrace it, but man, did she embrace it. She did an unbelievable job.
They obviously had a big impact on the program, the players like Mary, Lauren, Alexa Giuliano as well last year, grad transfer. What impact did they have on the players still with the Rams right now, their teammates from last year who now carry this forward into this year?
I can't speak for Lex as much, just because she was only here such that short winter and her injury kept her out. But I think for Lauren and Mary, the thing I keep hearing, and you're going to be seeing, you know, our captains today, is the effect that they had as leaders. Like, they were able to put the leadership abilities in front of the players, so they knew that their number one responsibility was to lead that team regardless of how their day or their game was going. And I think that now that we have no seniors and the young kids that are leading us, I think they are looking back saying, wow, that job is a lot harder than it was, but they made it look easy.
Coach, quickly, one last question for you. Can't mention losses without mentioning Coach Ange going off to Fairleigh Dickinson, 8 years with you. Can you just speak to the impact that she had on you as a coach and what she brings to the Knights?
Well, in totality, it was 16 years. So, I mean, it was a long time. Yeah, it was 8 at Fordham, but just not only just a great coach, like a great teacher of the game, but just a great person, a caring person. And I just think it's going to take her a little bit of time to turn that corner, but she is doing all the right things, and I know she's going to be an awesome head coach.
I'm sure you don't want to talk about the A-10 anymore from last year. We're going to move on to looking ahead, but first, we're going to go on the court. Isis Young bringing us some dribbling drills. We'll be back.
Welcome to On the Court. I'm your host, Isis Young, here with Coach Stephanie Gaitley. Coach Gaitley, today we're talking about ball handling. So my first question for you is, what are some characteristics that good ball handlers have at the D1 level?
It wasn't something I was great at, so I had to do a lot of studying of it. So just going out and researching or watching as much as I could and talking to coaches is, you have to have a tight handle. You know, obviously you have to always keep your defender off balance. Low to the ground, I think, always be a threat. And again, I mean, I think we have some very, very good ball handlers, but it's not easy. I mean, people think it's easy, but to be able to handle the ball and then also get an offense is even doubly hard. So, I mean, it takes a lot of extra time in the gym, but I think our kids have put that into it.
Okay, so what are some of the ways that you teach your players to kind of be able to handle the ball with control, with poise, but while under extreme pressure? And maybe you can have one of your captains here demonstrate for us.
I know I got stuck one time my junior year at Villanova, and I wasn't a point guard, but I got stuck ironically bringing the ball up against Notre Dame.
Okay.
And the first time I gave up my dribble and I panicked, but then the second time I just basically used the hip dribble, so I used my body. It depends. If you're going against, we talk a lot about isolations, big on small or small and big. If you're going against somebody that's a jet and really is going to pressure you, I think you got to put your body in between them.
Okay.
But if you're going somebody you can break down, it's just basically rocking them down and changing your speeds and just kind of getting to them and then exploding past them.
Okay.
So maybe Bree can.
Want to demonstrate for us, Bree, kind of backing them down using the hip dribble. Kenny, you want to play some defense?
Oh, something new. Kenny, defense. Yeah, let's go.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good, Bree.
Okay, Bree.
Keep that dribble low, Bree.
Okay, are we starting one-on-one here now?
All right, good job.
Thank you, guys.
That was
That's good.
excellent. That was great defense too, Ken.
Okay, Coach. So we've got kind of the hip dribble down with protecting the ball and being able to keep the defender off balance. What about some ways to create space off the dribble? So say you need to separate, be able to see the floor, change direction. What are some dribbles that you suggest your point guards do to kind of be able to create space?
One kid that has kind of mastered it early, which is unusual, has been Anna DeWolf, or freshman. She drags her dribble really well. Like the other day when we played Rutgers, and she was being doubled and double teamed, she was able to just create space by dragging her dribble back and giving herself some space to either one, drag it back and then attack the big, or drag it back to create space to make the pass.
Okay. Now, is this drag back dribble normally like a retreat dribble that
Yes,
some people call
yes,
it? Okay.
yes, exactly,
Okay, so more of a
exactly.
retreat dribble
Yep.
under pressure, but still able to look.
Everybody has different terms, but you could use retreat or drag, one or the other.
Okay. Now let's talk about post dribbling, right? We have post player here in Caitlin, and I've seen you guys play in practice, and you run hip a lot,
Yeah.
which is that kind of isolation. You're putting the defender on your hip on one side. What's the technique for that to kind of keep the ball under pressure, be able to also see the court, but also be able to create space for your dribble or to make a move?
Well, with the way the game is called so tightly that they're giving you like a call on every hand check, that actually it's a great offense. It's something I learned from my college coach. It's what he plays at Villanova. It's called, he refers to it as hip as well. And basically what you're doing is you're putting yourself between yourself and the defender. And what we try to do is back you down, and then if we're trying to get somebody in foul trouble, we'll turn and face and then change speeds and go past you. But the goal is, we have 3 kids here right now that can all do it, but you have to be a very good passer. But it's the same philosophy as if you're a post player. If you get them down in the block and you're single coverage, you're attacking one-on-one. But if you get double, then obviously you're reading that double. But we have some kids that do a pretty good job of it.
Okay. So, Keeks, you do this a lot, and I've seen you do it in practice. So, what is your position, and kind of what do you feel like is the best angle that allows you to see passes from anywhere? And if you want, you can come in and kind of show us how you do it.
Yeah, I like starting from the high wing area and then dribbling it back down.
Kenny, I'll
from
take the ball. You
there.
play defense again. You're so good at it.
Yeah, Kenny.
And then I'm big on, after I'm dribbling in, I like to hit a reverse pivot so I can see the opposite. So I'll be dribbling in here, and then I'll take a reverse pivot back to see if I have a skip pass opportunity.
Okay. Now, I noticed that you took a step back when you did that, too. When you're taking that step back, are you also thinking I can shoot off of this, or more so off the pass?
I'm usually seeing if there's a double coming, and if that, I'm looking for that skip. But otherwise, if I have single coverage, I can definitely take that shot as well.
Okay, now if you have single coverage, what are some moves that you use out of that to then score? So say now we know that everyone is covered over here, they're isolating, they think that they can guard you, but they can't. What are some moves that you like to use off the dribble to create for your shot?
Well, coach always tells me to stop passing it out of him. That's what I like to do.
That's why we're running it, right? Right, Coach?
But otherwise, I really like to just go into a simple hip and then just try to get into the lane and just easy hook shots or just keeping it simple.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it also depends, like, and we talked to these guys too about if she plays her really tight and Caitlin has a big kid of just going past quickly. If the kid's going to bother you, we're going to take a quick move past it. If the kid's going to drop off you, it's whether you're going to finesse it or you're going to be physical. It basically depends on what the defense does.
Okay, okay. Now, what are some common drills that you teach, probably in the summer when everyone's kind of getting acquainted, that are some ball handling drills that just help to sharpen your skills and to keep them sharp?
We had a kid come in from Michigan, one of our staff members, Nicole Munger, and I really liked a lot of stuff she did against the wall
Okay.
with ball handling, like just quick pounding dribbles and then using the wall for reactionary. I think they're really, really good. So you got to do a couple things. You got to do stationary stuff. I also like the tennis ball, either with yourself or somebody going with you full court. And then you have to obviously add defense, being able to handle the ball against defense. So you can use all the cones you want, but until you're able to go live and prove that you can get past somebody, you got to take the drills, break it down, get the repetitions, and then build it up to going live.
Now, when you're working against the wall, so I guess I'm throwing it against the wall, crossing over, throwing it back, or between the legs. Am I focused on how hard I'm pounding? Am I focused on being able to come out and pass really hard? Like, if I'm working on my ball handling, what aspect are you focusing on the most?
Well, it's interesting. One of the things I picked up when my son was working with the Spurs, as I went out there, and Danny Green, who's now with the Lakers, they had him do, and we talk about the power dribble. You know, we try to use the power dribble into your shot, but we created some power dribble moves, like power dribble and then bring it up, because you're going to lose that handle. So we're really trying to pound it to get you to be able to control that dribble, whether it be high or low. You should make mistakes. If you're going that hard, like when I was watching Danny Green, I mean, the ball was flying a couple times, and he's a pro.
Right.
So the goal is to get it down so you get confident and comfortable with it. And it's not easy to do, but once you get that down, you're going to have a pretty sharp handle.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Lots of ball handlers in the room. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I appreciate that. Coach Gaitley, thanks so much for joining me and showing us some ball handling things. Really appreciate your time.
Happy to be here, Ice.
All right. Coming up next is Looking Ahead.
Season preview time here on the Ram with Coach Gaitley, and fittingly, Coach Gaitley joins us right now. Coach, starting off, preseason poll, third, ranked yesterday, I believe it was. Disrespect? Do you even care about it? What are your reaction to that?
Don't really care. I mean, I've just done this so long that they really are irrelevant. I mean, pretty much felt how I thought. You know, VCU, everybody back, Dayton, the tournament's at third place, next best team, you know, in people's minds. You know, so I just feel it's what happens at the end, you know, and then you have to do these polls just for everybody else's interest. But actually, I think it is respectful. I mean, we lost two very good starters, but yet people feel we're going to be one of the top teams in the conference again. So that says a lot about the returning kids.
Obviously, VCU and Dayton are both going to be really good this year, but as we saw in the A-10 last year, there are a bunch of other teams that could give pretty much anybody trouble on any given night. Who do you see those teams being this year?
St. Louis has some young kids that are, you know, that I thought were really solid. I think UMass, I mean, they gave us all we could handle. I mean, Duquesne lost a lot, but I mean, to be honest, it's just, and there's been a change of coaching in Rhode Island, and at any given night, anybody, to be honest. I mean, there's just, there's a lot of parity. There's been some coaching changes with that. Becomes new exciting energy in certain cases. And so for us, you know, we try to take the stance of we see no name on the jersey. They stand between us and whatever the seeding is.
Focusing on the immediate future and the immediate past, you guys had an exhibition with Rutgers this past weekend. You guys fall tight game late into the fourth. Two-part question here. One, what's your takeaway from that performance? And two, what do you specifically look for in an exhibition game?
You know, it's interesting because typically in those exhibition games, they're closed. So we were able to open it because we wanted the funds to go to, you know, Bahamas. I'm actually trying to drive the NCAA to able to have at least one Division I open scrimmage, because I just think it's so important for our kids to play in front of people, put your uniforms on, get that feel. Again, it's good competition. No disrespect to D2 and 2-3, which is the only ones you can play in an exhibition, but I just really think playing the Division I teams gets you much better prepared. It's natural. You see it in the NFL and the Major League Baseball and the NBA, all these preseason games, and you're trying to get kids minutes. It was hard against Rutgers because they only played 4 quarters, so obviously you're not going to get everybody in or get the minutes that they want to get. So for us, we're looking at to try combinations where our depth's going to be, kind of change positions around. That was the timing of that was difficult because Felicie Tavui has, in my opinion, been our most improved player, and she got a concussion on Thursday, and it changed the whole nature of who we start and what our rotations are. And then in warm-ups, Katie McLaughlin sprained her ankle, so of that scrimmage. So now all of a sudden, that rotation, and then Anna DeWolf had been out an entire week, and her first day back was the scrimmage. So you're not really in sync yet. So for us, it was a good test. I took away a lot more positive than negatives, but it certainly gives you an opportunity to figure out what to work on.
Coach, you've got a tough out-of-conference schedule. You've got one more exhibition, and then you get Notre Dame, a team that was within a whisker of winning the national title last year. You've got a number of tough teams that you're playing before the A-10 slate begins in January. What are you looking to find out about your team before that A-10 play begins?
How tough we are, mentally and physically. We talk about every day in practice, like mental toughness. And I know as a former player, these are the type of games I wanted to play, but also when I took this program over, we obviously weren't ready to play those games. I just feel I'd be doing this team an injustice by not playing a schedule that challenges them, and giving ourselves 2 chances to get the NCAA tournament by virtue of an at-large bid or by virtue of winning the tournament. And you can't do that unless you play people, but you can't get it unless you win. But it's like a double-edged sword. Like you have to win, you have to play them to win them. So for us, we wanted to prepare that schedule. We felt last year's preseason schedule got us ready for conference play, and I think that proved out. This year's schedule is even more demanding, so obviously I'm going to be more demanding.
Out-of-conference schedule, obviously, as you mentioned, so difficult. Specifically focusing on Notre Dame, a team that lost 5 starters from a year ago, including Arike Agumbawale, who's one of the best players in the country we've seen over the last 4 years. How do you prepare for a team that is really brand new and also that you don't really have any tape on yet because it's the first game of the season?
I mean, interesting point. I mean, I used to laugh. Phil Martelli used to say all the time, he's now assistant at Michigan, but he was the men's coach at St. Joe's, and he used to say when he would play teams of that caliber, he goes, they have McDonald's All-Americans, and I have kids that eat at McDonald's, So it's just, for us, when I'm looking at them, I'm looking at tendencies. We played them in the NIT a few years back, and obviously they had, all the people that were, I think, were sophomores at that point that graduated last year. Last year they played primarily zone, but that was a lot because of their depth was limited. So, for all I know, they might be going back and forth. So we're preparing for both. But, in some ways, even though, they'll see some tape of some of our returning players, it's the same thing. We're kind of new to each other. I've known Muff, the head coach, for 40 years. So, I mean, and Beth, her assistant, that, she's somebody that lived with us for a little while when she was in the ABL. So there's a camaraderie there. So when this schedule took place, we just felt, timing-wise, this was a perfect time to catch them. And we felt we had a team that could catch them and beat them.
Quickly before we wrap up, you went in the ice bath with ice after you guys sold 250 tickets for the Notre Dame game. What was that like?
I'd rather not say. I tell the players all the time, you're going to be here, you got to be all here. So if you saw my outfit, I was all there, Jackson. I had my vintage 1920s bathing suit on.
We saw it all right.
I was a good sport for ice. I didn't get the capital right. I said Carson. I should have said Carson City. I said Carson Point or something.
I thought it was Reno. I had no idea when she said that. So I mean, credit to you for getting it.
So I mean, it was a great experience. She's an outstanding talent. I mean, you can see when she, she does the, the section she did with our kids. It's fun to do. And again, you got to be a team player, and you got to be able to make fun of yourself. And if it's a great way, if it's to get people to watch our team, I'm going to do anything for that to happen.
Should be an exciting season ahead. Coach, thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thanks to everyone for watching our season preview episode of The Ram with Coach Gaitley. A huge thanks to everyone at BronxNet and WFUV for making this show possible. And finally, a special shout out to Coach Gaitley and the rest of the Rams for the inside access all season long. Until next time, from my partner, Jimmy Sullivan, and the rest of our crew, I'm Jackson Heil. Have a good one, everybody. The Ram with Coach Gaitley is a production of BronxNet and WFUV Sports.